My parents boycotted my wedding because I dared to get married before my perfect sister. Their meticulously crafted image of a flawless family is finally cracking after I, a 32-year-old woman, tied the knot 8 months ago. Everyone attended the celebration except for my sister, Molin, 30, and, shockingly, my parents. While Molin's absence didn't surprise me, we've always had a strained relationship. My parents' decision to skip the event was jarring, though perhaps, in hindsight, predictable. To understand, you need some context about our family dynamics. I can't entirely fault my parents for favoring Molin. She's excelled at practically everything her entire life, commanding attention wherever she goes. From the moment she could walk, she dominated spelling bees, science fairs, and talent shows. In high school, it was the same story. Class president, valedictorian, prom queen. Tall, slender, and undeniably attractive, she even dabbled in modeling during college, alongside her business degree. I still remember her first modeling gig during her sophomore year. My parents threw a lavish party, inviting all our relatives and her friends. Her first professional headshot was framed and proudly displayed above our fireplace, where it remains today. That same year, I earned my computer science degree, and they mumbled a perfunctory "well done" before resuming planning Molin's next photo shoot. After graduation, she landed a job at a prestigious company and swiftly ascended the corporate ladder. At 30, she's a senior executive with a corner office and a company car. Meanwhile, I work as a mid-level software developer for a reputable computer firm. While I'm content with my career, it's not exactly the kind of job that inspires parental bragging rights. Adding to the disparity, I'm shorter and heavier than my sister. Growing up, my mother constantly criticized my appearance, enrolled me in unwanted workout classes, and subjected me to endless diets. Molin never struggles with her weight, she'd say, or, you could look as good as your sister if you just tried harder. Though I learned to tune out these comments by high school, the years of criticism left their mark. I've come to accept these differences. I eventually resigned myself to the fact that my parents would never derive the same pleasure from my accomplishments as they did from Molin's. What choice did I have? I spent years seeking their validation, taking classes they suggested, joining clubs they endorsed, even briefly attempting, and failing, at modeling. A failure Molin never lets me forget. But nothing was ever enough. I was just the other daughter, perpetually overshadowed by my sister's brilliance. Somewhere in my mid-20s, I stopped trying to impress them. I focused on building my own life, advancing my career on my terms, and cultivating relationships with people who appreciated me for who I was. Honestly, things got better after that. Knowing my parents' obsession with appearances, I kept my interactions with them superficial to avoid conflict. During obligatory Christmas dinners and sporadic family gatherings, I'd smile and nod while they gushed over Molin's latest job promotion, boyfriend, or exotic vacation. With Molin to dote on, they didn't seem to notice my emotional detachment. Then, at a computer conference, I met my husband through a mutual acquaintance. He saw me, truly saw me, unlike my family. He appreciated my dry wit, my coding skills, and, yes, even my body type. From the start, he never suggested I should change or compared me to anyone else. He proposed after 4 years of dating while we were at home, enjoying takeout and our favorite TV show. It was perfect. Naturally, I shared my engagement news with my parents last year. Their reaction, or lack thereof, should have been my first clue. There were no congratulations, just silence. My mother then asked if I was sure I wanted to rush into things, suggesting I might want to get in shape before the wedding. My father remained largely silent. During the engagement party, my husband noticed their peculiar behavior. They huddled in a corner, glued to my mother's phone for most of the evening. He later told me he overheard them speaking to Molin, who was apparently in tears. They were talking about how this wasn't the plan and how they never expected me to get married first. From what he could gather, there were some complications during the wedding planning. Despite not even being engaged at the time, my mother had apparently already created numerous wedding Pinterest boards for Molin and showed little interest in helping me choose a dress or venue. When I finally selected my dress, a simple yet elegant A-line gown that made me feel beautiful, my mother merely commented that it was practical and suited my figure. My future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she never had, and I ended up handling most of the arrangements. Before sending out the wedding invitations, both electronic and paper, I meticulously reviewed and double-checked the guest list with my husband to ensure no one was overlooked. I'm positive my parents received theirs. The electronic invitations included red receipts. I called, texted, and emailed them multiple times after realizing they hadn't RSVP'd. My messages were either ignored or met with vague replies about being busy and needing to check their schedules. Preoccupied with wedding preparations, I couldn't expend too much energy worrying about it. My in-laws were incredibly supportive, assisting with everything from seating charts to floral arrangements. Even at the beautiful bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, the glaringly obvious absence of my own family was never mentioned. Despite my parents' absence, the wedding day itself was wonderful. We had a relaxed afternoon celebration in a garden setting after the morning ceremony. Everyone remarked on how happy and in love we looked. But their absence was a palpable ache at times, like when I saw the empty front row seats, or during the father-daughter dance I couldn't have. After the honeymoon, I sought answers. When I finally reached them by phone, my mother launched into a lengthy tirade about my thoughtlessness, how she'd always dreamed of helping plan her daughter's weddings, and how she couldn't understand why I would exclude them from such an important occasion. I was bewildered. I was certain we had sent them both types of invitations. During the call, I double-checked our records, confirming that we had indeed sent them. Even the physical invitation's delivery was confirmed. I didn't challenge their attempt to gaslight me. I simply apologized for the oversight and hung up. Later, my husband recounted several incidents that revealed their true feelings. Their seeming surprise, rather than joy, when we announced our engagement, and their constant excuses for not helping with the wedding planning. He hadn't mentioned these observations earlier, not wanting to add to my stress during the planning process. But in retrospect, the pattern was clear. The notion of me, the less accomplished daughter, getting married before their precious Molin was unbearable. Their behavior only confirmed what I'd always suspected but tried to deny. I would never measure up to my sister in their eyes. The saddest part was realizing that even my wedding, which should have been a celebration of love and new beginnings, became another battleground in their ongoing war to maintain their perfect family image, with Molin at its center. Molin recently got engaged to someone she's been dating for a year. According to family members I've spoken with, in family group chats I no longer participate in, my parents are openly ecstatic about planning a lavish wedding for her. They're already bragging about securing exclusive venues and designer gowns, and my mother is whisking Molin away for private fittings at high-end boutiques. All the mother-daughter bonding time I was denied. Interestingly, a significant number of our relatives are now refusing to attend Molin's wedding and engagement party. Apparently, my parents' behavior at my wedding has become a topic of conversation within the family. When family members ask why my parents didn't attend my wedding, I simply tell them what I believe to be true. They couldn't handle me getting married before their favored daughter. I present the facts as I see them, without embellishment or seeking sympathy. My parents contacted me a few days ago, accusing me of deliberately sabotaging Molin's wedding. They claim the relatives they've spoken to are making excuses to avoid attending her wedding festivities. My cousin, to whom my sister vented, informed her that people are hesitant to come because they've heard about my parents' treatment of me. My parents insist I'm spreading lies out of jealousy over Molin's upcoming extravagant wedding. The thing is, I'm only telling people the truth about what happened. Maybe they should examine their own behavior instead of blaming me for the consequences. If the truth makes them look bad, so be it. As things continue to unfold, I find it increasingly difficult to maintain even a facade of a relationship with my parents. Their actions surrounding my wedding finally made it clear that I would never be enough for them, no matter what I did. The hardest part isn't their absence at my wedding anymore. It's accepting that I never had the supportive, loving parents I always longed for. I'm focusing on building a life with someone who truly values me for who I am. I'll update you if anything significant changes. First update since my last post 2 weeks ago. A lot has happened. I finally decided to confront my parents face to face about their behavior at my wedding and their current accusations of ruining my sister's big day. After reading your supportive comments, I felt it was time to address everything directly. When they started texting me about their tarnished family reputation, my parents quickly resorted to accusations during our phone call, claiming I was jealous of Mullen and had orchestrated the whole thing. I did something I'd never done before. I agreed with them. Instead of defending myself, as I normally would, I told them, "You're right. I'm envious. Not of Mullen's career, not her achievements, not her looks. I'm envious of the unwavering love and support you've shown her, which you never even attempted to give me." There was a silence on the line. My mother then started claiming I was exaggerating, that they'd always treated us equally. Something inside me snapped. Years of suppressed emotions came pouring out. I recounted every birthday where Mullen's latest accomplishment overshadowed my own. How my high school graduation dinner was canceled because Mullen had a modeling callback. How her prom dress cost more than my entire year's worth of college textbooks. Despite my father's attempts to interrupt me, accusing me of overreacting, I continued. I described what it was like watching them spend years planning my sister's hypothetical wedding while showing zero interest in mine. I told them how much it hurt to see their empty seats at my wedding, how my mother-in-law had to step in and help me with everything from wedding preparations to dress shopping. Their response was telling. Instead of acknowledging any of my points, they turned it around on me. "Why didn't you ever say anything if you felt this way?" As if I hadn't tried talking to them for years. My mother insisted I was being unfair and spiteful by sharing these feelings with our relatives. Then my mother said something that truly clarified everything. "We never thought you'd stoop so low as to try to ruin Mullen's wedding out of spite, but we always knew you were insecure about her success." She added, "This isn't how we raised you." I realized they weren't even listening. They believed the whole situation had nothing to do with their behavior and my feelings. It was all about Mullen's reaction. They were more concerned about her upcoming nuptials than the pain they'd inflicted on me. Even in this conversation about their absence from my wedding, I didn't try to smooth things over. For the first time in my life, I didn't back down or apologize. Instead, I told them exactly how I felt. "You're right about one thing. You did raise me. You raised me to believe I would never be good enough, that Mullen's achievements would always be more important than mine, that maintaining your perfect family image mattered more than my feelings. But you also inadvertently taught me that I deserve better than this." There was a long pause before my father spoke. His voice was cold and composed. "Maybe it's time we all stop pretending we're bad parents, since you've already decided that's what we are, and you clearly enjoy watching us suffer. As family, we thought you'd help fix this, but clearly you've made your choices." My mother delivered the final blow. "Maybe you just couldn't handle not being the center of attention, even though we always tried to treat you both equally, Rebecca. It's not our fault you choose to play the victim." I didn't bother arguing. What was the point? Everything I'd been saying, they'd just confirmed. They were incapable of taking responsibility for any of it, even in this final conversation. I simply said, "Goodbye," and hung up. Surprisingly, I felt a sense of relief after the call. There were tears. Yes, but they weren't the frantic, heartbroken tears I remembered from my younger years. These were tears of liberation. For the first time, I had said everything I needed to say, without holding back or feeling guilty for how I felt. Later, my husband found me on our back porch, watching the sunset. He sat beside me and took my hand without saying a word. After a while, I asked him, "They're never going to change, are they?" He squeezed my hand. "No, but you have, and that's what matters." He's right. I have changed. The little girl who desperately sought her parents' approval is gone. The woman who walked away from that last conversation no longer needs their validation. While it's painful to accept that my parents will never be the people I need them to be, It's not as painful as clinging to the hope that they might change. For the first time, I genuinely don't care what happens with my sister's wedding or the family drama surrounding it. I've said my piece, and now they have to deal with the fallout. The strangest thing is, I feel like a weight I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. While it's not the happy ending I'd envisioned with my parents, maybe it's the one I needed. The freedom to stop chasing love that should have been freely given. Second update. 3 days since my confrontation with our parents. Things have taken an unexpected turn. Molen decided to insert herself into the drama, but her tactic backfired spectacularly. Yesterday morning, my sister sent me a carefully worded text. She'd perfected a condescending tone over the years, and it dripped from her message. What you said to Mom and Dad was completely out of line. They've supported us through every stage of our lives and given us everything. You can't just accuse them of being bad parents because you're insecure about the choices you've made in life. She continued the message with her usual mix of self-righteousness and veiled jabs. I understand your wedding wasn't the fairy tale you imagined, but wasn't exactly what you envisioned. But that doesn't give you the right to try and ruin mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have worked hard to achieve certain standards, Rebecca. Not everything has to be a competition. I didn't respond. I've learned that engaging with her only gives her more ammunition. After years of enduring her manipulative behavior, I simply blocked her number. Molen has never handled being ignored well, so I assumed that would be the end of it. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, unable to reach me directly, Molen had found his personal number, likely through a mutual acquaintance, and sent him a series of texts detailing exactly why our sisterly relationship had never been good. She started her initial communication to him professionally enough, as Rebecca's sister and someone deeply concerned about our family's well-being. She felt compelled to reach out. However, it quickly devolved into her true motives. She informed my husband that, as the new man in Rebecca's life, he had a responsibility to help me behave more appropriately. The messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complex, she told my husband, a professional software architect with an MBA, adding that someone with my sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to help me see reason before I damaged family relationships irreparably. The real kicker was her attempt to leverage what she perceived as his social climbing aspirations. Surely you understand, she wrote, that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects, and by extension, yours. My husband, who has always seen through Molen's facade, found her attempted manipulation hilarious. He particularly enjoyed her assumption that her job title or the promise of networking opportunities would somehow impress him. She really doesn't know me at all, does she? He said. When I got home that night, we went over the messages together. Instead of feeling hurt or angry, I was laughing with my husband. Seeing Molen's manipulative tactics exposed, especially when directed at someone completely immune to them, was liberating. This interaction taught me something important about my sister. Despite all her accomplishments and outward success, she's still that insecure teenager who needs to tear others down to feel superior. It's telling how little she understands healthy relationships, believing she could control me by manipulating my husband. The most revealing part was her immediate shift to trying to use my husband against me when her direct approach failed. She used to do the exact same thing in high school, attempting to turn my friends against me when she couldn't bully me directly. Different decade, same tactics. With this new perspective, I now see how Molen's actions went beyond typical sibling rivalry. Throughout our childhood, she actively worked to maintain her position as the favored child, constantly reminding our parents, and me, of how much better she was. Anything I achieved, she had to outshine. Any flaw I had, she had to broadcast to everyone I knew. My reaction to her games is different now. 10 years ago, her messages would have sent me spiraling into self-doubt. 5 years ago, I would have been hurt and upset. Today, I'm simply tired of the drama and amused by her transparent attempts at manipulation. My husband's response was perfect. Instead of getting drawn into her drama, he simply replied, "Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not policing her behavior. I think it's best if you address any future concerns directly to Rebecca. Have a nice day." After not receiving the reaction she wanted, Mullen sent one final message. "I see. She's poisoned you against the family, too. Don't say I didn't try to warn you when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, Mullen's attempted intervention has only strengthened my resolve to distance myself from my family's toxic dynamics. Her messages to my husband prove nothing has changed. She's still the same manipulative person who needs to control the narrative, who sees any deviation from her ideal family script as a threat. Perhaps the most satisfying part of this whole incident is knowing her attempts at manipulation failed so spectacularly. Instead of driving a wedge between my husband and me, she brought us closer. Completely unfazed by her threatened social repercussions, we spent the evening laughing about her texts and planning a weekend getaway. I've realized that true family isn't about maintaining appearances or controlling narratives. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting each other when someone tries to manipulate you, even your own sister. I'm more convinced than ever that staying far away from Mullen's wedding drama is the best course of action. Rather than getting dragged into my family's endless power struggles, my husband and I have decided to focus on building our own happiness. They say success is the best revenge, but I'm realizing true success isn't about impressing others. It's about owning your choices and surrounding yourself with people who support your growth, not hinder it. By that measure, I feel more successful than ever. Third update. After my sister's failed attempt to manipulate my husband 2 weeks ago, things have taken an interesting turn. The situation with my parents is escalating. Despite their desperate attempts at damage control, I've learned through family connections that my parents have been on a frantic campaign to rewrite the narrative. They've been individually calling relatives, accusing me of spreading malicious lies because I'm jealous of Mullen's perfect wedding. They claim I'm just bitter because her wedding will be so much more elegant and extravagant than mine. Their latest story is that I deliberately excluded them from my wedding so I could play the victim. It's amusing that they still live in the same house they've owned for 30 years and have had the same email addresses since email was invented, yet they're claiming I sent their invitation to an old address. The good news is, their damage control is backfiring spectacularly. Our relatives aren't buying it. In fact, several family members have shared their own stories about my parents' history of favoritism. One aunt revealed that my mother had pulled similar stunts at other family weddings, always ensuring Mullen was the center of attention. The most satisfying development is how my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulations. Key relatives, some of whom were supposed to play important roles in the event, have withdrawn their support for Mullen's wedding. They've lost access to the exclusive venue they'd secured through family connections. Even a family friend's high-end catering business has suddenly developed scheduling conflicts. Things reached a breaking point at a family gathering last weekend. Apparently, when someone innocently asked to see my wedding photos, my mother, fueled by jealousy, launched into a defensive rant about how I'd changed since getting married and was trying to destroy the family. Her outburst backfired, shocking several relatives who were unaware of the situation and further damaging their carefully constructed reputation. It's particularly ironic that my parents' frantic attempts to preserve their perfect family facade are the very reason it's crumbling. Every time they try to justify their absence from my wedding, they reveal more about who they truly are. The more they try to paint me as the villain, the more people see through their deception. Where family members once remained neutral, they're now choosing sides. Recently, even my father's brother, who always stayed silent to keep the peace, apologized for not speaking up sooner about their treatment of me. He and his family have decided not to attend any of Mullen's wedding festivities. I haven't had to address any of this directly. I haven't needed to. The truth is, doing all the work for me. Every time Mullen and my parents try to twist the narrative, they end up revealing more of their toxic behavior. It turns out that all those years of staying silent and enduring their treatment for the sake of keeping the peace only enabled their actions. My husband put it best. They spent years building a facade of the perfect family, but it was built on emotional manipulation and favoritism. Eventually, it was bound to collapse. Personally, I'm thriving. I no longer carry the weight of seeking my parents' approval. The pressure to manage Mullen's emotions is gone. I'm not responsible for upholding their perfect family image. For the first time in my life, I'm free. Sometimes the best revenge isn't taking action. It's simply letting the truth speak for itself. I'm grateful to Reddit for giving me the strength to stand up for myself. You have no idea how much your support and encouragement have meant to me throughout this journey. Sometimes you need to experience genuine family support from strangers online to realize what it truly looks like. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.